Imagine waking up one day and realizing your entire world is literally caving in beneath your feet. Not metaphorically, but actually sinking. Now, imagine that happening to a sprawling metropolis home to over 22 million people. Welcome to Mexico City. This place is vibrant, full of life, incredible food, and deep, deep history. But right now, it's facing an existential crisis that sounds like something straight out of a disaster movie. Mexico City is sinking. And we aren't just talking about a fraction of a millimeter here. We are talking about several inches, and in some places, over 1.5 feet every single year. That's right. Every time you visit, the ground is quite literally lower than the last time you were there. Buildings are leaning, roads are buckling, and the entire infrastructure of one of the largest cities on the planet is warping. But why? How does a massive, modern capital city just sink? Well, grab a snack and settle in. Because the story of Mexico City's slow descent into the earth is a wild mix of ancient history, modern engineering failures, and a desperate thirst for water. To really understand why the ground is collapsing today, we have to rewind the clock, all the way back to the 1300s. We have to talk about the Aztecs. You see, when the Aztecs were looking for a place to build their grand capital, Tenochtitlan, they saw a sign from their gods, an eagle perched on a cactus, eating a snake. And where was this cactus? Smack in the middle of a massive, shallow lake called Lake Texcoco. Now, most people would say, hey, maybe we shouldn't build a massive stone city on top of a lake. But the Aztecs, they were engineering geniuses. They built an incredible network of artificial islands called Chinampas. They created canals, causeways, and a floating city that perfectly balanced with a watery environment around it. They lived in harmony with the lake. The water wasn't an enemy. It was their foundation. But then, the 1500s rolled around and the Spanish conquistadors arrived. Led by Hernán Cortés, they completely destroyed Tenochtitlan. But instead of saying, wow, this floating city concept is pretty smart, the Spanish decided they wanted a traditional European city, with heavy stone buildings, solid ground, and absolutely zero lakes. So what did they do? They drained it. They started a massive, centuries-long project to drain Lake Texcoco and the surrounding waters to make room for what would become modern-day Mexico City. And guys, this was their first fatal mistake. When you drain a lake, the water leaves, but the soft, squishy, clay-rich lakebed stays behind. It's basically like building a skyscraper on top of a giant sponge. And for a while, it kind of worked. But as the city grew from a colonial outpost into a booming megacity of 22 million people, that sponge started to dry out. And that brings us to the real villain of our story today: groundwater extraction. Here is the crazy paradox of Mexico City. It is a city built on top of a lake that is currently running out of water. I know it sounds ridiculous, but because the surface water was drained away, all those 22 million people need to get their fresh drinking water from somewhere, right? So they dig down. Deep down, beneath the clay lakebed, there are massive underground aquifers. Think of them like giant underground swimming pools filled with fresh water. The city relies on these aquifers for about 70% of its water supply. Millions of gallons are pumped out of the ground every single day to keep the city alive. But here's the physics of it, and this is where the disaster happens. When you pump that much water out of the ground faster than the rain can refill it, the underground water pressure drops. Remember that giant sponge I talked about? The clay lakebed? Well, the water inside those underground aquifers was actually helping to hold the ground up. It was providing structural support. Once you suck all the water out, the clay dries up, compresses, and collapses under the massive, crushing weight of the concrete jungle above it. This process is called subsidence, and it is entirely irreversible. Once that clay compacts, it loses its ability to hold water ever again. You can't just pump water back in and expect the city to float back up. The damage is permanent. And you can see the results literally everywhere you look. If you walk through the historic center of Mexico City, you'll feel like you're in a fun house. Take the Metropolitan Cathedral, for example. This thing is massive, incredibly beautiful, and completely tilted. The government has had to spend millions of dollars putting giant steel shafts under the foundation just to keep it from snapping in half. Or look at the Monument to the Revolution. It's an iconic landmark, but over the last century, it has sunk so much that they actually had to build stairs going down to reach the original ground level. It's mind-blowing. But it's not just about historical buildings looking a little wonky. This sinking is a total nightmare for modern infrastructure. Think about all the things buried underground. Water pipes, sewer lines, subway tunnels. As the ground shifts and sinks unevenly, these rigid structures simply snap. Mexico City loses up to 40% of its drinking water just from leaks in broken pipes. 40%. That is water the city desperately needs, just spilling into the dirt because the shifting ground tore the pipes apart. It creates a vicious, endless cycle. The city needs water, so they pump it from the ground. Pumping the water makes the ground sink. The sinking ground breaks the water pipes. The broken pipes mean the city loses water, so they have to pump even more water from the ground. It is a complete trap, and they're stuck right in the middle of it. And if running out of water wasn't bad enough, the sinking creates a totally opposite problem during the rainy season. Flooding. Wait, how does a sinking city that is running out of water also flood? Let me explain. Because the city is basically sitting in a giant bowl, the old lakebed surrounded by mountains. There is nowhere for the rain to go. Back in the day, the lake would just absorb it. But now it's all concrete. Historically, the city built massive drainage canals designed to rely on gravity to pull the wastewater and rainwater out of the valley. But because the city has sunk so drastically, those canals no longer slope downward. In fact, the city has sunk lower than the canals. So now, instead of gravity pulling the water away, the city literally has to use giant industrial-scale pumps to push the water up and out of the bowl. If those pumps fail during a heavy summer storm, boom, massive, catastrophic flooding. It's a delicate, terrifying balancing act. And the craziest part? The burden doesn't fall equally on everyone. The sinking and the water shortages hit the poorest neighborhoods the hardest. In areas like Iztapalapa, a massive borough in the east of the city, tap water is a luxury. The ground there has sunk and cracked so much that the underground pipes are completely destroyed. Millions of people have to rely on water trucks, called pipas, just to get water for drinking, cooking, and bathing. Imagine having to wait outside for a truck just to be able to flush your toilet or wash your hands. People spend a huge chunk of their income buying bottled water and paying for these deliveries. It is a daily, grueling struggle for survival in a city that is simultaneously sinking into the earth and dying of thirst. So, is it totally hopeless? Is Mexico City just doomed to sink into the abyss until it's completely unlivable? Well, not necessarily, but fixing this is going to take a massive, monumental effort. First, they have to stop pumping so much water out of the ground. But to do that, they have to fix the leaks. Remember that 40% of water lost to broken pipes? If engineers can aggressively repair and replace the aging, broken infrastructure, they could save enough water to drastically reduce the need for underground pumping. Second, they need to look up. Mexico City actually gets a decent amount of rainfall during the wet season. But right now, most of that rain hits the concrete, mixes with sewage, and gets pumped right out of the city to prevent flooding. Instead, urban planners and environmentalists are pushing for massive rainwater harvesting systems. Imagine if every roof, every building, and every parking lot was designed to catch the rain, filter it, and pump it right back into the local water supply. It could be an absolute game changer. There are also incredible projects aiming to restore parts of the old Lake Texcoco outside the city. creating ecological parks that can absorb floodwaters, recharge the underground aquifers naturally, and bring back the wildlife that used to thrive here centuries ago. It's about looking back at the wisdom of the Aztecs and learning to live with the water instead of constantly fighting it. Mexico City is one of the most incredible, resilient places on Earth. The people here have survived earthquakes, volcanoes, and centuries of chaotic history. They aren't going to give up on their home without a fight. But the clock is ticking, and the ground is still dropping. Every inch matters. The decisions made in the next decade will determine whether this beautiful, vibrant megacity of 22 million people can find its footing, or if it will simply continue to sink under the weight of its own history. What do you guys think? Can modern engineering save a city that was built on a lake? Let me know down in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on a notification bell so you don't miss out on our next deep dive into the craziest places on our planet. Until next time, keep exploring and watch your step.